Hey everyone, and welcome to a lesson on arpeggios. As some of you may know, a triad means a chord with three notes, and an arpeggio means that we just play the chord notes separately. So here's a B minor chord, and this would be a B minor arpeggio. Now what I want to talk about today is taking those arpeggios on just the two top strings, which is something that is a big part of Marty's vocabulary. One of the places where we can look at it is, for instance, in Tornado of Souls. Now let's start with this. This is a minor arpeggio. We have the 1, which is the B. We have the minor third. And then we have the 5. Now if we wanted to make that major, we would just simply take the third and move it up a half step, which then would be called a major third. Makes sense? Now what we can do is just take those two shapes, this minor and this major, and apply it everywhere on any chord progression there is. So let's keep this simple for now. Let's make it tougher as we go along. Let's start off in just C major. So here is the C, and this makes it a C major. Now let's take some other chords in C major. Well, let's keep this basic. So let's have it as C, A minor, F, and G. In order for us to be able to incorporate stuff like this is we have to know where the roots are. So that might be the first thing to practice, is picking a chord progression and just play the roots on the B string. So here is C, A, F, G. I know that this is not the most exciting thing in the world to practice, but trust me, finding the roots on every single string is good, but right now let's just focus on finding the roots on the B string. So here's C, A, F, G. And let's give them the arpeggios. It's pretty straightforward, right? Now let's take some kind of other chord progression. For instance, let's work with Hotel California. Here the chords are B minor, F sharp, A, E, G, D, E minor, and F sharp. Let's try and find those. So, let's add the arpeggios. See that? When there are more chords, it's a bit tougher to find your way around. It's easy to get kind of confused, you know? And that's one of the things about an exercise like this, that it's not technical for the hands. The hands are fine. It's tough here. Now, let's work on the next shapes. Let's go over inversions. So, let's look at Tornado of Souls a bit more. Now the next chord is what is this? Well, that is a G major arpeggio, but it is an inversion. What that means is this: if here is the G, And we have 3 notes here. Ba da da, 1, 3, 5. And what is happening simply is that we have the lowest note, instead of being at the bottom, it's at the top. So instead of 1, 3, 5, we have 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. See that? And that's something that happens for every single chord as well. So, before the G major was this, but now we're here. So how do we visualize that? Well, this time the root is at the top, meaning that it's on the pinky. So here's the G. So in order to get going with this shape, you have to know the root notes on the top E string. So let's do the same exercise with the Hotel California progression. So all I played was the roots with the pinky. So the first arpeggio shape looks like this. It's a minor. The next one is the F sharp major. Right? A major, E major, G major, and D major. E minor, and F sharp major. So if I play them in tempo, that's already a lot to be able to handle. But it's worth investing the time and the practicing to get that stuff working, because it really helps you visualize the neck. So all we've done so far is finding the roots on the B string and the E string, and then we have applied 2 different arpeggio shapes. Now, as you might have guessed, there's still the third shape, which is the second inversion, meaning that if our G is here, ba ba ba, and the first inversion was ba ba ba, then the next is ba 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 do ba ba, which looks like this. Let's find those shapes. So what we're gonna do is find the roots again on the E string, this time with the first finger. Sometimes the octaves can get jumbled around, but it's fine. The notes are the same over here and here. So the shapes that we're working with here is the minor is this, and the major is this. Let's go over the entire chord progression. So now we have 3 different shapes for each arpeggio. What we still had to do a lot was jump around to get those, right? However, one of the advantages of knowing your shapes all around is that you can combine them. So I'm gonna take the first position, which is the root position, and I'm gonna go to the next nearest arpeggio shape. Makes sense? Let's do the next one. So the last one looks like this. It isn't all that exciting to practice this kind of stuff, but it's extremely useful for developing your skills as a musician. Because when you get those down, then you can go wherever you want on the neck and make strong melodies, because you know where the home base is. And the home base are the chords. Now, one thing that Marty likes to do when he plays kind of fast arpeggios is he connects shapes like that. For instance, here's the B minor. Now what you can do is this. See that? We can do the same thing for the F sharp major. Same thing works on every chord. Now, as you might notice, one thing that's giving me some trouble is this. Having two notes on the same fret on different strings. That creates some problems. But once we get into bigger arpeggios, you'll see how Marty has some workarounds on those. If you look at what's going on in Tornado of Souls, here's the G major. Then there's the E major, which in the studio he does this, which is kind of an E7, but live he likes to do this, making it an E major triad. So it's a lot easier to perform. Then comes an F sharp major, then an A major. So it's all the same stuff, right? So what I would advise you to do is find different kinds of chord progressions on songs that you know, songs that you like, and try and visualize those arpeggios that go along with it. I can try and improvise something just using the chord tones. Let's see what it sounds like. Now, if you're using strictly the chord tones, it can be a bit jarring. The next thing you can do is add some scale tones between those chord tones. So that would sound something like this. See that? When I'm hitting the chord tones, you can really hear the chords as they come along. Now, I don't have to add just the scalar notes. I can also make just some chromatic notes to the chord tones. So we could do something like this. So what I did was I focused on the very chord tones, but I gave them these kind of patterns. You can do that all over the shapes. So in that case, for instance, the lower note is chromatic and the higher note is a scalar tone. So that's it for arpeggios on the top 2 strings. I'll put all the lesson material and guided practice backing tracks on my Patreon if you want to work on this stuff. But yeah, that's it. Happy practicing.